if we're being really charitable, it's crawl, walk, run. It's, how do we ease people into, this brave new world? But on the other side, it could also be like, and this is something that happens with these large organizations, that they're doing, they're painting a grandiose vision to sort of make up for the fact that, their actual product is behind the curves.
Hi everyone, and welcome to Deep Learning with PolyAI. Today with me, I've got Brian Thompson, our VP of Product Marketing. Brian, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. It's really good to be here. First time.
Yeah, well, welcome aboard.
Long time listener, first time caller.
Yeah, good. We'll try to get some first call resolution in. But look, I think today what would be really interesting is to cover the announcement of Agentforce by Salesforce. I think like every year, Dreamforce happened, and the Salesforce hype bandwagon has been in kind of like going full steam. So tell us, what is Agentforce?
Oh, what is Agentforce? So Agentforce, gosh, it's so many things, but really, I think at its core, it's this big strategic shift from Salesforce. They've, to this point, leading up to this, it was Customer 360 last year and so on. That's what they've been building toward. But now they're saying, well, actually, the next stage is autonomous, dedicated AI agents. It's their chance or their play for deploying AI in large organizations in ways that are discrete, ROI focused, and really kind of answering all of these questions that we've had over the last couple of years of how do we start to get value out of these AI experiments. So that's one thing. It's this vision that they're painting. Another way of looking at it is it's a rebrand for Einstein Copilot, because that's kind of where we're starting at least, and they're looking to make new release. Things are going GA over the next months, 2 months, 6 months, and so on. But there's a long road to hoe.
Yeah. I mean, like, if you just read Reddit, tomorrow's cynical reviews say Agentforce is the rebranded Einstein Copilot. It's another one is a Copilot for like generative agents instead of like the previous Einstein GPT announcement, which I think came last year. Not to be skeptical, I mean, I genuinely think that like Salesforce has so many things working in their favor in this ecosystem when it comes to the backend data, interactions, etc. Benioff is going rampant talking about the type they have the best AI, and what really caught me by surprise in looking at, we're a bit like a mouse, kind of like watching elephants thump around, but it's very aggressive towards Microsoft, right? Like he talks about Clippy, he talks about Copilot not being it. I almost feel like there's a part where he's just talking about agents and agentic behavior as kind of like something that we haven't stopped talking about for the past 12 months as, he's bringing it into the world of enterprise. What do you think about all that?
Oh, I mean, okay. So there's multiple pieces there. I mean, first of all, why is Microsoft this present absent? Why are we talking about Clippy and all of that? And I think that there's probably a couple of reasons there. I mean, number one, like so many of us were deeply scarred by Clippy.
I love Clippy. I've said that before. Like
Okay, fine. Right? Some of us love Clippy. But see, the point being though, Clippy is like a universal point of reference, and really,
a divisive figure.
oh, well, very well, polarizing, which is fine. But polarizing but well known, and so much of, I think, one of the leitmotifs of this presentation and kind of everything that Salesforce is doing is that they're trying to take AI out of the ether, and make it really like tangible, practical, results oriented. And so tying it to discrete things that people know about, I think it helps grounds it in that way. But also the other thing that I think they're aware of, because they're smart, right? Salesforce has long connected kind of the legacy enterprise with trends that are happening in Silicon Valley. It's kind of their shtick. They can take it and upscale it, up level it, and all that. And that's been really a good place for them. But at the same time, though, Microsoft, which has an even deeper legacy connection, they've built mainframes and so on. they're now connected to OpenAI. So all of a sudden, where Salesforce was able to say, we are a safe enterprise, but born digital, still forward thinking company. Now Microsoft can make very similar claims and they have the same kind of relationships with very senior decision makers. So I don't know. I would expect that they're trying to get in front of some of that.
Yeah, no, I mean, it makes sense. They're probably fighting for similar budgets. And one thing that Benny have touched upon is like, and I think like this has been making rounds online and in other places where basically people talk about most AI projects failing, right? And how like a lot of them don't actually like provide the ROI that um, they hope it will, right? This on the one hand makes sense because it's new technology and there's a lot to be figured out. But on the other, like she kind of like takes that out and then talks about um, bringing something that's better than a Clippy, better than Copilot, very anti-Microsoft, right? He talks about doing bake-offs liberally, etc. He's using very startup lingo, which is very interesting to see because I think it's simultaneously very like big companies, strong, confident language, and on the other, it's like clearly the undertones of being a challenger to someone who's got the first mover advantage is very, very interesting. Um, Similar to Elon talking about Grok being better than OpenAI, real knows, right? Um, I think here as well. But when we look at uh, that whole thing, and then we look at the demos, right? Um, they're basically showing, success revenue using it. A few people talk about kind of like evolving and changing as a company to meet people online instead of in stores, about having hyper personalized shoppers. Then they go back to that, like, and it will help augment humans, not replace them, right? So, like, I kind of feel like it's not really gone all the way towards agentic behavior where it's still just a chatbot with the pre prepared kind of like thing that a human can validate and send over. But to me, that felt very Copilot.
Yeah. Like, and same. I think that once again, you can interpret this a couple of ways. I mean, if we're being really charitable, it's crawl, walk, run. It's, how do we ease people into, this brave new world? But on the other side, it could also be like, and this is something that happens with these large organizations, that they're doing, they're painting a grandiose vision to sort of make up for the fact that, their actual product is behind the curves or like arguably so. And I think it kind of it kind of remains to be seen, but I don't know, like maybe this is more your wheelhouse. Like, what do you think, based on what you've been able to see and based on kind of what we hear from people that are leveraging their services?
Well, look, I mean, I think that they're definitely not ahead of the curve, right? When it comes to voice, we've not seen them, right? Like we interviewed with them. Salesforce is a great company. We're a happy customer, right? I live and breathe Salesforce. Um, but when it comes to like these models, like they've had the budding AI practice that's never really made it into the big leagues. They're kind of like, for the Ted Lasso fans, like they're kind of like the club trying to make it into the Premier League, but have never really gotten there. I mean, just recently they bought another voice company called Tenet, a smaller company. Same team that previously got acquired by McDonald's and later sold off the spare parts to IBM. So I think those moves are there, much like this announcement, just to counter Microsoft and preserve relevance in the space. I don't really think that they've gotten to like the demo is a demo, right? What they've shown in terms of the builder and a configurator um, is not how enterprise voice assistants are built, right? Like it cannot be one prompt with a few words and then like off you go. Again, like I think for the same vision that Einstein had in terms of text and in terms of like helping human agents, it's great. And I think for that they have the data. Right? I don't see why they're trying to compete with OpenAI with Microsoft and figure out better models. It is clear that they can have better, more targeted, fine-tuned models for each individual customer based on the data, right? This way, I felt a bit like they're really just taking a very broad sweep at all of the competition needlessly.
Well, I so I think broad is what Salesforce does, right? They and strategically, it's a necessity. They're kind of an everything company. It's full stack sales, marketing, CS, like you name it. And so it's one of those things where, like, we're in tech. We think of in terms of trade offs. They're one of their biggest advantages is their ubiquity and the breadth of everything they offer. And by the same token, that breadth, like, kind of forces them into a position where they have to be generalist about everything, and they have to kind of elbow people out. Otherwise, otherwise they're potentially in trouble. But I wanted to dig into something that you said, because you mentioned that the interface they show is not the right way to build voice AI assistants. Um, but it might be sufficient for other things. Does this like I guess, given those constraints, or given that voice is fundamentally different, is there ever a world in which it gets properly incorporated into that kind of a like a one size fits all, one stop shop thing, or does it need to be on its own?
No, I mean, I don't think it has to necessarily. Sorry, I think Salesforce is one of the players, I think, with the strongest. If there is a great price to be had in the world of doing a lot of work in an automated way with the right integrations, I think Salesforce is the kind of a key price asset compared to almost anything else out there to build, a huge number of autonomous, well-functioning voice assistants that do a lot of work for a lot of companies, right? Both in support and in sales and in everything else, right? They've definitely got a good launchpad to do it, right? I think they don't have the technology. They don't have the platform. They don't have a lot of things, right? Um, and it's not so much about the model, I think, about that, but much Benioff is right. I think it's really more the like full on suite of like solutions and everything from analytics to the actual like dialogue manager inside the voice assistant. Like, how do you build and provide the control to people, right? In many ways, I think the fact that they're trying to go so broad doesn't allow him to go after the fact that, maybe we can have a fully autonomous um, voice assistant. And they demoed one, and it's not bad, right? I think the real issue is if you build it in the way with technology that looks like what they demoed, it's not actually going to work that way. And I think they we only need to wait until February and the GA for voice to see how well they get on. We've been doing a lot of work um, on other models, and including end-to-end ones, and you can do a lot, but equally a lot is left unsaid when people share those demos. So I think everything from the control to the third-party integrations to actual safety and dealing with hallucinations and double hallucinations, which is what we call kind of like when speech goes wrong, like the agent goes off the rails. What do you do, right? I think it's also just like a really good thing that they're doing this. I think that we've seen like a surge of interest and followers that you would not believe on LinkedIn and everywhere else. So thank you, Mark Benioff, much like Sam Altman, for all that you do for, bringing to the attention of larger enterprises the good work that we do as well. But yeah, I don't know. I think that there will be something. We'll see how much. I think that they've done a lot historically at each Dreamforce to announce, rebrand, and show. And I think people are kind of like holding out their breath and waiting to see what's real versus what's just the general showmanship that they do each year.
Yeah, and I guess when I think about it, um, setting aside, setting aside how achievable any of this is for them or in the short term, whatever. I'm just interested in that future state vision that they're painting. Right? It's one that, as I said, it's like, okay, I guess in some ways, they're trying to take AI out of, well, it comes first out of the classroom, out of the academy, and then out of the, I don't know, whether it's weird garages of startups or whatever, but they're really trying to take it into the corporate boardroom. And
They did. So I think like, just like in terms of what both OpenAI and then Microsoft did in the way that well, I mean, just in how impressive LLMs are, right? Like big enterprises are already doing it. Like they are late to the game and just trying to
yeah,
cover their thing.
Julie.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, no, this is the point I'm trying to make is that they've been doing it, but when you look at, and I'm, up to my eyeballs in like, like consulting research and things like that. So you look at what people say, it's like, yes, I think something like 80% of large organizations are either currently experimenting with Gen AI or they have plans to do it in the next year. But when it comes to like uh, notions of ROI, they talk about innovation value and other like very, very squishy things. And I think that we're with
Community adjusted EBITDA.
you go wrong. Yeah, and so I think that folks are feeling increasing pressure to let's be practical about this, and let's like think about a deployment that's not just intellectually interesting or doesn't just satisfy the fact that like our board wants to know what we're doing with AI, but really like it is something that's going to be a step change in how we like function as an organization, and so that was the thing that intrigued me about Salesforce, like putting their marketing muscle and their messaging muscle behind this multi-agent vision, because I think for a lot of these large orgs, this might be the first time that they're really being given a permission structure to think in these ways. It's
Yeah.
now because it's Salesforce trusted partner saying this is the future, and I think that has some real implications. And so I kind of want to know your reaction to that.
No, I think it makes sense. I think that really in many ways, what I found incredible as a B2B founder, the more like we've gone into it, is there's basically a dark web of companies that you don't get to sell to as a small B2B company, right? Like you can sell to a large bank because they have innovation departments. You can sell to all sorts of companies. You can develop a vertical speciality and then find the right channel to get to someone. But like both Microsoft and Salesforce are companies that, especially Microsoft, have government clients, healthcare clients, other clients that you just won't get to work with if you're a startup, right? So I think you're right. Like them kind of like taking Silicon Valley lingo into the market out there. I think it's maybe necessary to use the kind of like confidence and bravado and going against Microsoft. But otherwise, they're there to kind of like help companies experiment. And because of who they are and what they do, I think there will be a great many company for whom they're the best stepping stone into that technology, right? The thing that gets a bit hairy here is that, AI is not really SaaS, right? Like to derive meaningful enterprise value from AI, you really need to wrap yourself around like recreating workflows, um, knowledge base integrations for that agent to harness, right? So the question is like, will their partners be able to do this just yet, right? And that, there are two questions: like how well have they enabled them, and how good is the platform, and can it be done, right? Um, I think it's going to be a pretty tall order for very, very, very many partners to fully use this technology to create those kinds of outcomes yet, just because of where the technology is. Not the models, but the application stack, right? Like, like computer networking. Maybe there aren't 7 layers, but there's quite a few. And I think that models, LLMs are like the bottom one, right? But like who and what company uses it, uses that configurator, how they use it, how do they observe its behavior, when are they confident about releasing it? And again, I come back to like, if they are to take those baby steps, the first step very much looks like Copilot, right? So those are marketing wars between Microsoft and Salesforce, and that's fine. We'll see how serious they are about any of this. But the skeptic in me kind of almost goes like, well, if you're Salesforce, you kind of want to talk about this so that if there is a crisis of ROI later, when it hits Microsoft, it hits you, you just weren't hit in the meantime because you have been seen as a laggard in terms of AI. So, Rashid Benioff tweeting about his models being ready better than anyone else's. And I think, that doesn't really make him stand out next to Elon and the whole cabal.
Yeah. Well, because there's also this uh, like heavy implication that they just have like solved the data aggregation problem too, with you know data cloud, that kind of thing. It's like, so we have everything, and I just color me skeptical. I have yet to look under the hood of even like a moderately sized business where everything is like nice and in order. But like on that note, I think when I think of obstacles to this, it's like everything that you were talking about. I think it's the data aggregation piece. I think ways of working within the enterprise, like just sort of, you know, like the cultural change necessary to roll these things out. I see as potential obstacles, but am I missing something? Like, what else do you making it kind of hard over the next? Let's call it like 3 to 5 year transition before we're all replaced by robots.
Well, yeah. Hmm. I think, many ways to build on. Um, in terms of making it real, right? They talked about Saks Fifth Avenue, then they demoed Sophie. If we call Saks Fifth Avenue now, Sophie's not there. Well, the first question is, where's Sophie? Right? And I think that kind of like goes back into what you talked about. The whole thing is a very messy affair, right? What you need to do inside that company to mobilize it towards having its data processes in a shape where you trust, let's say, perfect AI or an infinite pool of really good agents to do the work well, is a hard thing. It's a transformation, right? So, like, will Salesforce be a part of this role? Absolutely, right? I think they have a birthright to be one of the winners, right? And I think they will be. I think the pitch feels a bit recycled, but it remains to be seen. I think that we have quite a few customers that are excited about it, so they'll definitely have a fair shot at trying it out. As for voice, well, I don't think they've cracked it or are even close yet, but I'm excited to mini it. Yeah, well, that makes two of us. Yeah. Cool. Well, Brian, I think we're out of time. Thank you for being a guest on the podcast for the first among many times. I hope. Thank you all for listening, and we'll see you in the next one.